refresh that page. I should see a standby. Cool. Cool.
Stibs related image in the admin discussion. A Stibs related image in the shared admin discussion.
All right, we are live.
Now I can hear myself.
Yep, you're gonna want to mute that stream. We'll give people a chance to get in here, but we are officially live. Can folks hear us? I'm assuming we can. All right, there we go. Hello. We've got some folks coming in. All right, Tyrant's Blood Decontest. We got a couple folks in here. Yep, okay. So sounds like audio is all functional. Thank you for confirming that. I had to reset up this entire stream setup because I got a new computer. So I now had to go back and recreate everything from last time. So today we are going to be discussing Theros Beyond Death, some of the cards in there. We're not going to probably hit every single card. That would be a little bit insane. But we are going to try and cover a good chunk of what we discussed, the cards we discussed in the quick hits, as well as some stuff that we didn't get around to. Yeah. So yes, and Stibs is here, in case anyone didn't notice in the bottom left, the little face here. He's here in the call in case he wants to chime in. All right, so Fizzled, you wanna talk about this first card I have on the screen here?
You mean not quite Sarah Angel? That's the right term. Avenger. There we go. Yes. So card number 1, got favorite Daybreak Chimera. A very fair 5 mana 3/3 with flying. Devotion just happens to potentially decrease the casting cost, or the generic mana casting cost rather. And I've got nothing bad to say about it.
I mean, the biggest concern would be like this does kind of implicitly go into a white weenie style aggro deck, and the cube does currently have a bunch of tokens, so there are definitely openings where this is not going to be a turn 3. But I do believe that this is a pretty reasonable thing to expect to be able to cast on turn 3. Going 1 pip, cast this for 3, or even 1 pip, 2 pip, cast this for 2, and then maybe squeeze in a 1-drop feels really good. I feel like this is a lot of this is formality. I think this card is just very good in the cube. I don't know if anyone in the chat has opinions to the contrary, but I think this is one of the biggest slam dunks for this set in particular. Or 1 pip, cast 1-drop with 1 pip, cast for 2. Yeah, you can swap up the order a little bit, but yeah, I'm a big fan of how much this thing is going to beat my face in while I play Dirtle decks. Just going to be very nice for that purpose. Also, I hadn't realized that this is basically just Sarah Avenger. How hard do you need to be into white to play this? I feel like you probably want to be base white, but even late game, just getting a cheap, efficient body out of this, you don't feel too bad about. Like being able to double spell on turn 5 with like this and a 3-drop. How often is this going to be 2 white Phantom Monster? I think a non-zero amount of times. I like the idea of a few cards that promote 1-color strategies. I don't even think that this promotes a 1-color strategy necessarily. I think you can play this in 2-color. If it comes down turn 3, it's faster than Avenger. Yes, technically. But yeah, I think this is just a solid hit for the cube. It's a nice body for the rate, because like the fail case of this being the 5 mana 3/3 flyer that is a staple in every limited format for the past like 5 years. is fine, but I feel like you're rarely, if ever, going to actually have this be that fail case.
Yeah, that's sorry. I've been trying to look up the other 3/3 flyers for 5-ish mana. There's a bunch that give us 3 life when they enter the battlefield. A couple others that are in the cube, like Chivalrous Chevalier and Custody Squire, which are just not fair for standard level Magic.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, this, which is uh, at a single mana discount, basically an unfair in at common. I don't even know how to describe it. It's the next closest thing is Pterodon Knight, which only gets flying if you control a dinosaur for
Yeah.
4 mana.
Yeah. I'm pretty well in favor. Single discount is Phantom Monster. Yeah. Like I'm still pretty okay with casting Phantom Monster if I'm gonna be honest. It's not the best, but you could do a whole lot worse. I don't know. I think this is personally a slam dunk. The times where it casts for 2 are just going to be absolutely silly, and the ones where it doesn't are still going to be fine. Then put Phantom Monster back in, you cowards. Maybe. I don't know. All right, let's move on so we are not here all day. The next one that I had seen some discussion about is, and this is one that has been doing pretty decently in actual limited. It's this card, Dreadful Apathy. So this is a pacifism. You can pay 3 and a white to exile the enchanted creature. What are your thoughts on this one, folks?
While we wait for chat to catch up, I mean, it's one of the pacifism variants where you get a little upside, not being able to turn off ability is less than ideal, but we have other pacifism variants that can only stop attacking and blocking.
I mean, so
Incidentally, exiling would be good.
Yeah, I was going to say, to be fair, this does eventually shut off the abilities in a very permanent sense. So Scotty Arch brings up the synergy with flicker effects. Yes, if you activate this and with the ability on the stack, flicker it, you do get to pop it on something else and then do it again. That said, I don't, off the top of my head, remember if the one big flicker effect. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly. Yeah, Ghostly Flicker is artifacts, creatures, and lands. So we'd have to intentionally include something that could flicker this in order to get that sort of interaction. Do you have any way to get the switcheroo to work in the cube? Oh. It seems clunky IMO. Would be good with it. Would just be the new flicker probably. Yeah, that's kind of the issue. This looks neat and it does neat things in its actual draft environment, but I'm not sold on it for cubing purposes. Is basically my read of this. And for folks at home who are not super cued into Flicker of Fate, let me just pull that one up here. So, sorry folks, just getting reacquainted with this OBS setup. Let's swap over to this. So yeah, there's a Flicker of Fate, which will exile a creature or enchantment and bring it back. So these two together are a kind of neat combo. Flicker of Fate does also have other weird interactions that I am not a gigantic fan of. Specifically, I believe Journey to Nowhere is still in the cube, if I am not forgetting absolutely everything at this point in the morning. And you can...
You're correct.
You can flicker in response to the ETB trigger and exile something permanently. Um, O-ring as well. Yeah. So tossing in Flicker of Fate does open up some possibilities. I'm not sure if I want to include Dreadful Apathy as part of that. Um, Including both cards for one bomb effect seems clunky. Graph Rats is in the cube at all. Yeah, this is a little bit more open than Graph Rats because Dreadful Apathy on its own is okay, and Flicker of Fate on its own does other things. So it's not as like very parasitic as including a meld duo, but I'm I would be open to having the discussion about Flicker of Fate if we really want to lean into the Flicker archetype. But I don't think even if it gets in, that means Dreadful Apathy should replace one of the other pacifism effects. For what it's worth, I'd rather have a 2-mana variant than a cute 3/1. Yeah, that's also fair.
If you could replace Flicker of Fate with Cage of Hands for just a second, uh, I literally just want to show them both on the screen. I don't have strong enough feelings either way.
All right. Oh yeah, this is the pacifism that bounces. This is the pacifism that, in theory, always goes on the strongest thing.
Yeah. So if if you're in a bigger cube, if we bumped up to 450 instead of where we're at, uh, that could be you could add Dreadful Apathy as an additional option. Cage of Hands it's been okay. I can't remember the last time I actually bounced it and put it on another creature. Um, it's the only other argument I have in favor of Dreadful Apathy, which is there's another card that's in that I'm not back. But other people might.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm apathetic to both of these options. Also, never really looked that hard at the art on Cage of Hands. Actually, creeping me out a little bit. But yeah, oh yeah, you can also use the return ability to save Cage of Hands if your opponent's doing some shenanigans. Yeah. Again, I just don't think Dreadful Apathy currently has a home in the cube, but it's one of the ones that I'm going to pick up a copy because a foil will be cheap and I may want to play it at some point. Looking through the rest of white here, let me actually. What is that one? So the next thing I have here, white's a little light here in this set. We did get Omen of the Sun, which is a 3-mana Raise the Alarm, and that also tacks on some life gain, and also tacks on the ability to later cash it in for Scry 2. I have been deeply lukewarm about this one.
I mean that's fair. Um, for me, it's weird because when the first Innistrad block came around, three create two 1/1 white tokens with speed was an uncommon ability, but those tokens had flying.
Mm-hmm.
I would have snap said absolutely yes to the Sun. I I like it a bit more than I think most people do. I don't know if I love it, and I want my cube to be all cards that I love, or mostly cards that I love.
Yeah, I think the bigger I think the big thing for me with this is that this whole cycle, the omens, they're all permanent. So like you can get real cute with Skyfisher effects, rebuying them. Stibbs also points out life gain here is actually nice, given so few ways to gain any in the cube. I think this is one of those ones where this kind of strikes me in the vein of Pulse of Marasa, where no part of this card is good on its own. Like Flash, like a 3-mana Raise the Alarm isn't great. Instant speed gain 2 is not great. Scry 2 for 3 mana and white is honestly, with the state of white and its card filtering, not the worst. But like altogether, it feels like it's one of those things where it probably adds up to be a reasonable card, but none of the individual parts of it look super appealing. I think this is one that I might want to include on a probationary status, just kind of see if it plays out better than it looks. And if it does, keep it in. If not, be like very ready to cut it.
I can understand that rationale. That certainly makes sense. Also, incidentally, from the pre-release, it looked not too shabby in foil when my opponent stalled our round one went to time, and by that I mean our round one first game went to time. We took forever. Um, Looks good in foil, I think.
Yeah, I do love a pretty foil. We switch one of the two CMC token makers, probably not. The only one I would consider maybe, and this is a strong maybe, is Gather the Townsfolk, which I mentioned the other week in chat. I've literally never seen the Fateful Hour mode get used. It usually just winds up being turn two, create two two twos or two one ones. That's the only one I would consider, and even then, I'm not a fan of that. I would much rather just have this as a 3-mana flash, make two one ones, and find space for it elsewhere. Yeah, it's two one ones for two. That's the thing. Like that rate is just really good. I think this would. I can't off the top of my head think of anything that I've really wanted to cut from the white section here. I can. You definitely pull up.
The next closest for me is actually oh man, what is the name of it? Aven Riftwatcher, which I would hate to cut solely because it has flying, and I still love Evos Isle.
Also, I like that card. I don't know why. It's definitely a bit of a pet card. Sandstep. Oh boy, I love Sandstep outcasts. I have a lot of feelings about things with variable sized bodies. Let me just see if there's anything. There's nothing that really jumps out to me in white where I'm like, this can just go. It is also part of the you can do flicker things. That is true. Seeing this Settle Beyond Reality sitting here, looking real funky. I'm not gonna spend too much time pontificating on this, but I like Omen of the Sun more than any part of it. Don't you touch Settle Beyond Reality, Stibbs, buddy. You gave the cube to us. You got to learn to let your darlings die.
All right, time to power up my Thanos power here. So here's the thing: when we talked about that card with the community, I put it out there, and everyone's like, "This seems terrible. It's too much mana, belly aching all around." I put it in the cube. Comes back. Wow, this card's a lot of fun. Man, it gives white something good to do at the end of the game. Oh man, so much value. I get to flicker and kill something. Everyone loves Settle Beyond Reality, and you're a monster if you think otherwise.
Oh, fair. I'm just gonna continue to give you a little crap for something that I don't particularly care for, but
I gave you nonsense and you turn your nose up at it. I don't know what to tell you.
This is a very nonsense card. You can just sit there flickering your mnemonic wall and pretending that that's a viable game plan. I do appreciate it from that aspect. But yeah, I think Omen of the Sun is something I might consider on kind of that probationary status where it doesn't go in with the anticipation of it staying in past one set, but we just give it some time to see how it winds up playing out. All right, let's see what else we have in this set. White was pretty light. Let's talk about let's talk about Leonin Blade or Leonin Scimitar. Is that what it is? With upside. So this is Sentinel's Eyes, which, besides having some of the creepiest art in this set, is one enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 vigilance, and it escapes for only 2 cards and a white. I have been a pretty big fan of, moderately big fan of this. I like the fact that this is a very low escape cost, so it is almost an equipment. It's, as I said, it's almost Leonin Scimitar with upside, but I would love to get other people's opinions on this, because I'm sure there's something I'm not seeing. I have not gotten a chance to like extensively play with or against this in Theros Limited, so I don't have the greatest grasp on it, but I'm leaning towards this being an interesting thing that we could potentially include.
I only played against it, I think in my second round. I was getting crushed anyway, but my opponent never escaped it. They did make use of the vigilance, which, it's incidental. As trinket text, you're not really thinking about it. You're expecting your creature that you equip up die anyway. I can envision it doing more work with some of White's tokens, some of Green's tokens, and I don't know if you magically got it to the Aristocrats deck with black. I'm gonna call it Vulturous Aven, but not the right one. Our current exploit creature getting to sacrifice another token and then getting vigilance off the escape is a dream kind of finishing move, but it's also should already be winning the game.
I do like Simple coming in with the very hot take of it's basically White Rancor, which I think is a little bit of hyperbole, but I think the cool thing about this also, and all of the auras kind of have this, because it is an aura, if it winds up in your graveyard, most likely a creature had to die to get it there. So even if someone removes your creature in response to you casting Sentinel's Eyes targeting it, you already have half of the escape cost in the bin just off the creature that they removed. I hate to say this after years of like Limited telling us, oh, auras are bad. I think this is actually pretty reasonable. Decontest, I don't disagree that +1/+1 is a little anemic, but it's something to do with your mana, and I think the vigilance matters a good deal. Like being able to late game toss this on some flyer to build your own Sarah Angel is pretty appealing to me, if I'm going to be honest. Vigilance definitely matters. Yeah, I think early game you don't want to be necessarily casting this unless you have something that has a reasonable defensive body and you need to keep a blocker back. I don't see this getting cast a whole ton like turn 2, but I would. Oh, I guess we do have like Fairy Guide Mother. Like Fairy Guide Mother into Sentinel's Eyes probably does more work than I want it to. Definitely higher on this card than I thought it would be. Keep stuff out of bolt range. Yeah, like I think again this is just a fine card, and I would love to have it tested out. Can't be equipped to Guardian, literally unplayable. Feature not a bug.
So here's. Can you pull up Cartouche of Solidarity next to this, please?
Sure thing. Can I spell cartouche? I most certainly can. So Cartouche of Solidarity is +1/+1 first strike, and you get a 1/1 with vigilance.
Oh, that's right. The token has vigilance. In my brain, the aura offered vigilance. Never mind.
Yeah, I think it's still like
comparison I wanted.
I think it's still like a reasonable comparison for like a 1-drop enchantment where they've tried to cram a bunch of value into it. I think Sentinel's Eyes just kind of does more on its own in a vacuum. Like, you don't need to be able to like take leverage from the free token that comes along with it. First time round Cartouche is better, I think. Yes, I think first time round it is. I think if you can keep jamming Sentinel's Eyes onto whatever your biggest threat is, and they keep removing it, and you keep getting more gas to feed Sentinel's Eyes, I can't see that like exile 2 other cards from your graveyard ever being a negative for a white deck. Like, I guess maybe if you're also in blue and for some reason have a Treasure Cruise in your deck, but even then, like, I think this is as close to Escape being free as there was ever going to be, but I don't know. I'm more high on this than I thought I would be. All right. Let's continue on. Do we want to talk about Transcendent Envoy? The aura reducer?
There's not enough auras. I don't know. I don't think there's enough auras to worth doing it. And
all right.
I mean, sure, whatever. Pull it up. We can do it in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
My answer, flying is relevant text. The body is not exciting enough. Reducing the cost of your pacifism. Okay, you're double spelling. If you're not double spelling.
Yeah, I think
doesn't really matter.
I think this would be fine if we had more support for an Aura's sub-theme. Like, if Boggles was still in the cube as a sub-theme, I would be fine including this, but I'm pretty apathetic. I'd rather not. Yeah, Decontest, I think that sums it up. Like, this is fine for what it is, but I'd rather not. There's like 11 pacifisms in the cube. There are. How much better is a pacifism at 1 mana than 2? I guess twice as good, right, in terms of mana efficiency, but I think they're still fine at full rate. I think it is better to just have them in there at full rate than have this thing in there and like draw it when you don't have any action with it, because if you don't have an aura spell to cast off this, a 2-mana 1/2 flyer is not tremendous. But what if Aura Flyer's archetype? No, absolutely not. Yeah. All right, so Transcendent Envoy exists. If someone has a really solid reason for this, we may consider it, but not really super huge on it. Blue. So I'm going to just toss this one up here because I haven't seen anyone discuss it. Eidolon.
Can I intervene?
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about Heliod's Pilgrim?
Sure. Oh yeah, that did come up the other day in chat. All right, Heliod's Pilgrim. So, oh come on now, show me the. There we go. So here's Heliod's Pilgrim with nice new art. It looks gorgeous. So we already have Totem Guide Hartebeest. Is that the name of the card in the cube?
Yes.
Okay, so this is let's pull up the Totem Guide. Let's put those next to one another. So Totem Guide Hartebeest is a 5-mana 2/5 that tutors up an aura, and Heliod's Pilgrim is a 3-mana 1/2 that tutors up an aura. There were folks in the Discord comparing, somewhat jokingly, but you know, there's always a bit of truth to these sorts of jokes, that Heliod's Pilgrim is a 5-mana Chupacabra. And it is still going on in chat. Boy howdy. I don't honestly hate that comparison. I think I prefer something like this if we want to support pacifisms as like white's big removal. Having this as a way to tutor up a pacifism not looking at Discord right now. I'm very much not looking at Discord. I have 2 screens full of all sorts of stuff. But I could see this coming in as a way to cheaply tutor stuff. Totem Guide Hartebeest body matters a lot more. Like a 2-5 stops a lot of things. But honestly, like Heliod's Pilgrim will just get you your removal quickly. And also, if we're going to toss in Sentinel's Eyes, that could be neat. It makes it, and I'm going to regret the words that are about to come out of my mouth, the world's tiniest stone forge. 2/5
Okay.
is LOL try attacking. Yeah, it just sits there. Honestly, I could see both of these in there. I don't know if mistakes were made when I created the community. Oh, I mean, like Heliod's Eyes makes it a 3/6. Yeah. So 3/6 is like the body at point at which like you never have to worry about it dying in combat unless it gets double blocked. But I think Heliod's Pilgrims are reasonable. Like there's a lot of 1/1s running around in the form of tokens. It just eats one of those and cantrips into a piece of removal. Stoneforge, you say. White makes most of the 1/1s. That's true. There are also X1s and other colors that this trades for. Because I think the big thing is Heliod's Pilgrim in most white decks that have at least a pacifism is going to some portion of the time be a cantrip. So this being a cantrip that trades with an X1, only if you have one you haven't drawn. Yeah, I generally, thinking through it, like in most Pauper Cube drafts in white, I generally see like at least 2 pacifisms in a like strong white deck. So I think it's not unreasonable to think that it's going to cantrip. In that case, it's a free shuffle effect.
I'm nodding. I'm nodding in my office. Realizing you can't see that. Yeah, I typically end up with 2 or 3 pacifism variants. But I almost, unless the creature I'm casting on turn 3 can kill something that's been cast on turn 2 by my opponent, I'm going to play one of them, I expect, before I can cast Heliod's Pilgrim. And I can't do the hypergeometric calculation in my head. I'm guessing that means that I don't have enough of a good chance to draw another card.
I see what you're saying. Green and blue have a little synergy with the Aura Tutor. Yeah. I mean, this fetching up Rancor is pretty much the nuts, right? Huh.
I'm expecting somebody else to answer. Yes, it is absolutely nuts, but putting Rancor in is excellent regardless of how you do it.
Yeah, just having a Rancor in your deck probably makes it better, and Heliod's Pilgrim probably isn't pushing the needle quite as much. Or fetching the new fight card. Okay. I think that Heliod's Pilgrim could find a place. This might require me to sit down and look at other aura payoffs, just because now it's in my brain as like a horrible brainworm that isn't going to leave. Oh God, I do just. Why did you bring this up,
I think
Stibbs?
It's Wolfire, Stibbs.
I just want to cast a Heliod's Pilgrim fetching a Armadillo Cloak. This is very deep garbage, but like that's what I want to do. I'd like to see red and black have something good to grab while you were thinking. There is a black card we'll talk about later in here that I think would be a reasonable thing to grab with this. All right. I'm going to have to think on Heliod's Pilgrim a lot more, and I anticipate there's going to be a intense behind-the-scenes discussion. But let's swap to blue for a second. Oh. Eidolon, not
Also,
Eidolon.
Stibbs, if you can put in chat what the aura you're looking for does, I might be able to help you figure out what it is. I can't think of what the name.
All right. I just wanted to toss this out there. Eidolon of Philosophy exists. It does say the magic words draw 3 on it, and it is a technically above rate body. I don't anticipate anyone to entertain my nonsense, but this is a card that exists. It's a better Trilobite. Eidolon,
Yes, it is a much better Trilobite.
Eidolon costs the same as Treasure Cruise, big asterisk. Yeah, I don't think this is great. It is an improvement on something, but eventually we're gonna see a version of this that is actually good. Oh god, now I'm gonna have to see if I can spell this. There we go. Only had to get a few. So this is Ichthyomorphosis. It is another in the line of Kasmina's transmutation effects, which I'm actually going to pull up right next to it because I think these two should be discussed together.
They're good analogs, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's double up. So, for 1 mana more, the enchanted creature becomes a 0/1. It also loses creature types, which I don't think matters anywhere.
That's right. We didn't put in the green 1-drop that only cares about non-humans.
Yeah, I don't think that made it in. Worth noting, and this is a weird one that I'd never noticed before, Kasmina's transmutation doesn't make it lose the creature type. And, like, I guess you can technically Ichthyomorphosis your own zombie army to create a second zombie army. Like, this is Galaxy Brain style Magic plays here for sure, but
All right. So Corny is saying fish breath costs too much. He doesn't call it fish. I will. And of course, claustrophobia didn't show up the way I expected because I don't use Twitch enough. But claustrophobia would actually be the analog I would consider slowing down a big threat for 2 mana is great from transmutation. Eliminating the abilities of, a 4/4, whatever it is, ichthyomorphosis feels more like what we're trying to do with claustrophobia. That's where I would look for the swap if I were to make it.
yeah, I'm not super huge on this, and honestly, I've been kind of mixed on Kasmina's transmutation lately. Don't we have a new claustrophobia we aren't using? Is Waterknot not in the cube? Is that what I'm thinking of?
There's only 3 auras in blue right now.
Yeah, so the one that we aren't using is Waterknot, which is just another claustrophobia. Got cut to make room for transmutation. I think that is correct, and we may reverse that. I have been less of a fan of the turn something into a 1/1, especially because it doesn't always work out the way you want it to. Did we not also add Charmed Sleep? I think we discussed Charmed Sleep. Is Charmed Sleep also just...
It's functionally the same. It just had different art, so I think we mentioned it quick hits, or maybe in the chat line.
0/1 can still hold a Bone Splitter. That's true. A tapped creature can still also hold a Bone Splitter. It's just less effective. Yeah, so Charmed Sleep is another variant on this. I think the takeaway here might be not add Ichthyomorphosis. It might be go back and see if it's worth just adding in one of the claustrophobia likes instead, because Kasmina's transmutation just hasn't been as effective as I wanted it to be. Let's move on to a discussion of something that is my particular brand of degeneracy. I would like to introduce everyone to Naiad of the Hidden Coves. This is 2 and a blue for a 2/3. As long as it's not your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. I love this card. I don't know if it's good. Boy, howdy, though, I do love it. 2 mana Ghostly Flickers.
I mean, yes, 2 mana Ghostly Flickers is. You can't see me rubbing my temples because it hurts my heart and my brain. The body is fine. The rate is completely reasonable. I think I put it in the quick hits. My fear is about accidentally enabling degeneracy in blue-based control decks.
Your
I don't know if it
concern?
will break something or if it just could happen.
So I think the big thing I would love to do with this is just play blue-red spells, if I'm being honest. Getting to Magma Jet for 1 mana, getting to, Stagger Shock for 2, dump anything that is instant speed that I would like to cast, I would always like to cast for 1 less. Oh, Into the Royal for only 1 mana, 3 mana kicked. Yeah, I think it's similar to Nightscape Familiar, just in terms of enabling double spelling quicker, and in this case, enabling double spelling on your opponent's turn potentially. I don't know. I really like this as a build around. And I think that's another thing. I just want to have build arounds in the cube that give you an idea of here's the thing I can do. And in this case, it's playing all the removal on my opponent's turn. You get a free extra creature off Death Denied. This is all of this is just like, so it's Goblin Electromancer that doesn't require you to also be an Izzet, I think is a worthwhile thing to note. And it is only for a instant heavy deck. Knight is really very strong in Pauper Cube. Yeah, like, I just like this thing. Also, I will note spells, not instants and sorceries. So, I don't... Oh, yeah, here we go. You can cloak...
we do have some flash creature.
You can Cloaked Siren for 3 mana. 3 mana, 3/2 flash. Hail the Sun. Yeah. I like this quite a bit. I don't know what's going out for it, but I would very much like Naiad of the Hidden Coves to be in because I think it is a neat card that we have never seen anything quite like it before. Let's move on, though. Counterspell for only you. Yeah. It does everything you need. All right. Let's talk about this. And let me just pull up the obvious thing to go with Omen of the Sea. Scour all possibilities. These are both not quite preordained, but in some ways a little more than preordained. I very much enjoy a preordain. I am fine with a preordain at 2 mana. Sea Ordain. Okay, sure. Fine. That's fine. I like this. I'm not sure if I like it more than Scour All Possibilities. I think I do. And that's kind of a bummer because I really like Scour All Possibilities and was very amped on 2 preordains in 1. And this is most of 2 preordains. I really like the fact that it is instant speed as well. The dream of holding this up along with a counterspell on turn 2 just for maximum miser value is neat. Yeah, the flashback on Scour is very expensive. I think the fact that it still draws you the card is really nice. Also, the obligatory, you can play Skyfisher alongside Omen of the Sea, picking up your Omen of the Sea when Skyfisher comes in. This is not the reason we should play it, but it is going to be sweet when you get to do it. Losing the card advantage from Scour is a little sad, but instant speed is so good. Yeah, I think like there are some legitimate downsides to losing Scour, but I think Omen of the Sea has a slightly cleaner play pattern. Also, like if you really need to dig for something, you can go flash this in turn 2 on your opponent's turn 3, hit your land drop, scry 2. Like if you really need to dig 5-6 cards deep, you can. Yeah, I like Omen. Anything from you, Fizzled?
Sorry, I'm looking up the word sacrifice in the cube to see if by chance there are anything in blue that cares about sacrificing permanent. Angelic Purge is one that we didn't mention. As
Ooh.
comboing with Omen. Sorry, Omen of the Sun. When we were talking about that, there are times where you'll never use the Scry 2. The the Omen will just sit on the battlefield, but having something else you can sacrifice is incidental perk. If the grossest thing to happen to me, that's not true. The second grossest thing to happen at the their release was my opponent flashing in. I don't remember which Omen, but one of the Omens in response to the um, in response to
Oh,
Black, the new edict.
the yeah, I was gonna say the enchantment edict. Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
uh,
I like.
which changed how I was going to use it, but also hurt my feelings.
Yeah, I like the omens. I like the fact that they're permanents that play like spells. I think they're neat. I think Omen of the Sea is getting in. Just just gonna nip that one in the bud. I don't think there there needs to be any more clarification. Um. Oh man.
I'm gonna institute some sort of punishment on the Discord people who use that bad pun because it hurts my heart. I don't know what that punishment will be.
So,
It'll probably just be a stern look at my computer.
you know what? I'm not gonna talk about Riptide Turtle, and I'm gonna spare everyone that. I am gonna talk about another weird one that I would like to discuss: Sleep of the Dead. Pro points. It has a very cute dog on it. So Sleep of the Dead is a freeze effect, so it taps a creature, doesn't untap, and then you can escape it for 3. I saw this and immediately was like, maybe this is something that we could slam into like a aggressive tempo deck. Yeah, Double Fried says Sleep of the Dead is sweet in low to the ground blue tempo decks. Don't really exist right now. I think this is the type of thing that could help push blue there a little bit more. Escape 3 is way harder than Escape 2. I think the big thing for me is just that this does keep stuff locked down. 2x Escape 3 is 3x. Yes, thank you, Stips. I can math.
Can you replace Angelic Purge with whatever we have? Silent Departure.
Sure.
For the record, you have not proven that you can math.
uh, um. So yeah, silent.
Those who can don't have to prove it; they just do it.
All right, so we've got Silent Departure, which bounces something for 1. Okay, I see what you're getting at here. That this is more mana intensive, but probably does the job better. Yeah.
If you're somehow in that aggro, if you're in that aggro universe, or if you're trying to absolutely finish with your Dinrova horror that just can't get past 1 or 2 extra bodies, Sleep of the Dead is more likely to get you there than Silent Departure. I think you could cast it, God forbid, on turn 9 a third time and get rid of more blockers. I don't know. I don't. It's the same problem I have with so many of these Theros cards. I don't feel strongly enough either way, and I didn't get to play this particular card at the pre-release. But I can see the best scenario, which is something we can't currently.
Yeah.
And I can see a worst case scenario where it's what we can currently do, but we never escape it.
I'm just gonna say if you're doing a big bulk order, pick one of these up. The foil is going to be dirt cheap. Maybe at some point we pivot a blue tempo archetype in, but yeah, I like this more than a lot of people, but I think it's a neat option. Also, really going to quickly touch on this one, Starlit Mantle. It's 2 mana flash for an aura. When it ETBs, the enchanted creature gets hexproof until end of turn, and then it sticks around as a +1/+1 buff. I don't think this is better than Dive Down. I get the reason why it would be. Very neutral on this. So let's move on to a thing that I think no one is neutral about, because there's a lot going on here. Yeah, I see the last word here. Yep. Can we discuss Thirst for Meaning? Yeah, we can talk Thirst for Meaning. All right. First thing I would like to bring up about this. Blue on its own has a whopping 3 enchantments across the entire cube, not counting... Oh, are there any enchantments in the...
Crystallization.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm just looking at the list on Cube Cobra. I can actually just filter T enchantment. So there are 27 enchantments in the cube. So more often than not, this is going to be a 3 mana, draw 3, discard 2. How do folks feel about this card? Because I'm very torn on it. I love a thirst for knowledge, and I don't think that this is a thirst for knowledge. It does certainly get velocity. Also, just to stir the pot a little bit more, let me pull up a second card here. Dig 3 at any cost. So, and correct me.
Technically fair.
So here we go. Reign of Revelation is also draw 3, pitch 1 for 1 more mana. That always gets you up 2 cards, or up 1 card. Technical card advantage.
Decontest notes that Thirst for Me fuels escape, which
It does.
is technically true.
And we are going to have a discussion later on in this Q&A where we talk a little bit about graveyards and how graveyards work and what we want to do about those graveyards. Yeah, I really don't know. I like Thirst for Meaning. I'm pretty sure most of the time it is just going to be 3 mana, draw 3, discard 2. And the times where it's not, most of the enchantments we have in the cube are pretty reasonably high powered. Like, I don't know, I'm not discarding my Pestilence to avoid discarding another card.
Yeah, that's accurate. Definitely keeping the Pestilence there. I don't know. You mentioned Rain, and I've cast it a couple of times. It's been fine for me. I don't know. When this is happening, I generally just want, there's a card that I'm looking for. I'm digging for a particular answer. And sometimes it's going to be, you want to cast something at instant speed in response to that opponent's Pestilence, so you can hopefully get to the counterspell. You don't care what else you pitch as long as they don't land Pestilence.
That's a fair point. Like, just the 1 mana less means you're more likely to be able to draw into interaction and then cast it. I see that.
So for me, it's more of a, compulsive research rather has been untouchable since I got my copy of the cube. Thirst for Meaning, because I'm never gonna. We're not trying to mill our opponents out. I'm never gonna cast it on my control opponent like I would in Pauper Constructed. Thirst for Meaning.
Thirst for Meaning doesn't target.
I know, which is why I'm saying compulsive. Like, I'm never using the other mode. If I'm casting it on turn 2, or sorry, turn 3 rather, I don't want to be discarding a land because chances are I had nothing else I could do on that turn and I need the land.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really, I got to hold up my 3 mana and do this on my opponent's turn if it was turn 3. Once it starts getting, turn 5, turn 6, almost doesn't matter to me whether I'm casting it on my turn or on their turn. I don't have strong enough feelings either way. Basically my case for it is, am I control deck or am I a ramp deck that wants this card? And I truly don't know. I think instant speed, getting the single best card out of the is more valuable if I have better answers than my opponent. And I don't know which blue deck has better answers.
You know what? I actually earnestly hadn't thought about the other comparison that you just kind of triggered in my mind. I'm gonna blank now. Nope. Here we go. I hadn't thought about it, but this is basically a 3-card deep Forbidden Alchemy that sometimes gets you 2 cards. With that framing, I actually am a lot more okay with this.
Forbidden Alchemy is that's not the cut I would have gone with, but that makes sense. Yeah, that's
I mean,
accurate.
so it's Forbidden Alchemy with the upside of, if I have 2 things in hand I don't care about, I just get to look at 3 new cards and take all of them if I want. I love a Forbidden Alchemy, but yeah, no, I get it. I get it now. Cool. All right.
And Stibbs, I want you to know I'm going to use that "Welcome to Being Correct" as my Twitter header now. You've conceded that I was correct about something. I love it.
All right. Any more blue things before we move on to black cards?
Sorry. Switch windows.
I think
Vexing Goal for a second, if we could.
Sure.
Like 15 seconds for real.
It's better Windrake.
Yeah, it is better Windrake, and also the more that we start to value the cards that are in our graveyard, the less that I'm Stitch Drake be in blue 3-drop spot. Body is better than this, but potentially adding discounts for casting spells on your opponent's turn, and continuing to have Warden of Evil's Isle is making Vexing Gull more and more attractive. It's just, I don't think it's good enough. A 7 out of 10, but I want to love it, and so it's going to end up in my personal fork for at least a little while.
All right. I can see it. Like, this is an almost pushed enough Windrake for me to be very excited about it. So I get it. All right. Moving on to black cards. All right. Let's throw the chat into utter catastrophe by asking how you pronounce the last word in this card's name. Oh, Stibbs wants us to touch on Elite Instructor. Now, I would like to say I'm pretty sure this card already exists. And I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it.
There's a Merfolk.
I know it's a
Merfolk Trader.
Yep. So let's pull up both of those at the same time. Let's get this 2-pane action going on. So Elite Instructor is 1 mana more for 1 power more. I am not a huge fan of this. Why play Elite when there's Cloudkin Seer? Because sometimes having more than 1 copy of a similar effect is good.
Yeah, that's one answer. The other answer, stay tuned after the commercial break for more. No, the other answer is a lot of people when they saw Escape were excited about doing something with their graveyard. And while blue has a delve spell in the current iteration of the cube, we don't make great use of our graveyard as blue. Um, there's other stuff we could be doing, particularly if we bring in some escape cards. But we have to provide enablers that get us there.
Yeah, and I think for me the elite instructor is not a big enough of an upgrade off of Merfolk traders. Also, if I really wanted to fuel the graveyard, I think I would go in a slightly different direction of how we want to establish a graveyard fueling card advantage. I like that it's attached to a body, but like I would really love a impulse to graveyard type effect in mono blue, kind of like Forbidden Alchemy. If we had something like that stapled onto a creature, even if it was more expensive, I would prefer that as a way to fuel stuff. I'm not a huge fan of loot once. Cloud Concealer, Tome Raider, Skyscanner all seem much better. Yeah, Decontest, a strategic planning type of thing. In this case, I like that it comes attached to a bear. 2/2 is a reasonable body. I'm just not sold on it at the moment. That's my piece on Elite Instructor. Definitely good in an environment where you can make use of those cards. In the bin. All right. So, I believe that this is Blight Breath Catobal Pass. Or Catobly Pass. I've heard a lot of pronunciations of this, and I don't know which one it is. So this is a 6 mana almost Flame Tongue Kavu. So 6 mana gets you a 3/2 when it enters the battlefield. Target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is your devotion to black. Is I the big thing
Can
for
you
me?
pull up Night Stalker, please?
Yes.
Somebody says it's not. I'm sorry. Simple's MW. It's not good enough to know how to pronounce it.
Don't like the body for the mana.
Maybe.
I think that's fair. Because these are obviously both in like the greater oeuvre of cards like Flame Tongue Kavu, and obviously neither of them are as good as Flame Tongue Kavu. So Blight Breath is probably killing something when it comes in, just because it itself provides 2 black pips. You'll probably have something else. -3/-3 usually can eat something on a board. I like the fact that it doesn't automatically kill something, even if like there was always the issue with Flame Tongue. You can't cast it into an empty board because it just eats itself. Yeah, I don't know. 3/2 is kind of a weedy little body that I'm not a fan of.
Yeah. So generally gonna agree. It's not my favorite. The I guess broader perspective. So in Theros, you can kill a god that can't be destroyed, which is nice. Killing or shrinking something 2/2 is good enough. You're right, Bicorny. I don't want to threaten your Night Stalker. It is my Night Stalker. That was the last air quotes expensive card that I bought for the cube myself. But we've aggressively moved hexproof abilities out of the and pointing out to people that Night Stalker is one of the last bastions or one of the last things that is designed to kill something untargetable that remains in the cube is part of my duty to point out. Targeting removal is right now more important. That's the best argument that I can offer in favor of Catopal Pass. Stibbs points out that the CMC is so much, which is
I mean,
true.
we've had 6 mana removal that leaves behind far less impactful things than a 3/2. It's killing and I also like what Running Monkeys points out here, that most of the time it is killing the same thing as a Night Stalker or something slightly bigger, which is actually not an unreasonable point. Like, there's a lot of board states where like Predatory Night Stalker is reliably just gonna eat a 1/1, like a token, and Blight Breath is always going to kill something that's at least a little bit bigger than a 1/1, or almost always, I should say. Like, you can remove this in response to its own trigger. I don't know. Maybe 6 mana is so much, though. I think
Yes, I am not excited about cutting the edicts, but if they functionally reprinted Doomblade, if they had functionally reprinted Doomblade right now, I would be saying Diabolic Edict has to go. Second Doomblade has to come in. The threats are all targetable now. I don't know.
Yeah. This is a tough one. I don't think it's going to make it in there, but I am going to pick up a copy for my own personal collection, because somewhere down the road I could see this coming in as a support card. All right, let's see what else we've got in black that I want to talk about. Got this guy. It's Discordant Piper. It's another one in the very long series of 2-mana dude that dies into another dude. In this case, it becomes a goat.
He's very jaunty and happy.
Yeah, it's somehow the worst version of all of them. Yeah, that's my big issue here. Like, the body it leaves, most of these are 1/1s that die into 2/2s, and except for a Putrid Goblin, which is a 2/2 that dies into a 1/1, and even that is better than this. I don't know. This is not my jam. If we desperately needed a way to support like an Aristocrats deck that wants to sack a whole ton of stuff at once, I could see this. I'm not a fan. I did want to talk about it though. What else do we have in here? Oh, let's talk. Actually, we'll save the Harpy for later. Let's talk about Mire's Grasp. Oop. All right.
Just ask. We don't have any zombie payoff, do we? No, we don't have anything like.
For
I want to call it Cruel Ultimatum, but that's not the name.
Cruel Revival. Are you looking at Grim Physician? The 1/1. Okay, so cool goat tokens. Be corny. There's some other creature that also makes goat tokens as well. So Mire's Grasp. This is not exciting. It is functional. I don't know. Adding removal to a cube is sometimes a very boring affair, but Mire's Grasp is almost another Last Gasp. Let's.
I think that's fairly how we described it in the quick hits.
And there we go.
I hate that I like it more.
Decontest brings us back around. I did mention that there's a card later that we were going to talk about with Pilgrim that would make Pilgrim a little bit better. Yeah, I think Mire's Grasp is just fine. Being able to tutor this in a grindy black-white deck with a Heliod's Pilgrim feels like a good play. For example, that feels a lot more preferable to Blight Breath Catoblepass. Yeah, there's not much to say about Mire's Grasp because it is fundamentally a very boring card, but it works. Like, it's a Doomblade, right? Doomblades are never exciting, but they are good, and you include them because they're good.
One additional silly thing, because I forgot about it when I mentioned Angelic Renewal, whatever the name is.
Angelic Purge.
Purge, thank you. Final Payment is one of the Orzhov cards. It's similar. The additional cost to
Oh,
sacrifice creature or enchantment. That was
that's
the other one I
right.
remember.
Yeah, I'd
So giving
forgotten.
black an
Additional thing to feed into that. I get. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Myers Grasp doesn't need us to go on forever about it. It is just a reasonable piece of removal. Um. Oh. Stibbs mentioned Stab Wound. Yep. This is in the similar vein. Stab Wound does have the rider of making them lose life every turn, but I think I'd rather just kill things a lot of the times. Um, I have one more thing in black that I would like to discuss because this has another one of those magic bodies in Pauper. This is Underworld Charger. It's a 3-mana 3/3 that can't block. It escapes for 5 mana and exiling 3 cards, and it escapes with 2+1/+1 counters on it. So it becomes a 5/5 for 5. I like this a lot. Um, Again, the fact that you, for me, how this card plays is your opponent will probably be able to answer the 3/3 pretty reasonably. The question is how many 5/5s can your opponent's deck answer before they just die?
We have pretty much exactly the responses in the chat that I enjoy. Decontest loves it. Running Monkey says this card is sweet. Double Fried says help, I really like it. We will try to get you help, Double Fried. Simples MW says it seems all right. It'd be silly if you can escape it more than once, which is fairly accurate. I saw a table next to me at the pre-release attack with it, or sorry, escape it twice. That's like a lot.
And Stibbs does point out that pacifism does hose this pretty hard, but I feel like if they had to trade to get it into the graveyard and then there's way more bounce in the cube, that's true. Being able to bounce this resets it to 3/3. Again, like you just have
You're still taking premium removal out of if you're doing that.
that's kind of my thought here is like this will mostly wind up getting traded for reasonable cards. You're probably down mana in most of the exchanges, but it requires someone to use an actual answer on it. Like I'm not absolutely as in love with this as some people are, but it's a 5/5. That is one of the magic bodies in Pauper that is too big to trade for most things. I think the only Exile 3 escaper that I'm into. Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think on this one a little bit more because I'm not 110% on board, but I like it. I think 5-mana 5/5 that turns sideways and forces your opponent to have answers is not that bad. Yeah, bouncing your own stuff to keep it alive is not my jam, but especially this, I'd rather just like wait to be able to escape it again if they have removal. And also like if they're blocking this, yeah, like if they double block this and I'm gonna get to eat something that's a reasonable threat to me on the crackback, yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm actually fine with just recasting this the hard way. I don't know. Well, we'll debate Underworld Charger down the line in private. Are there any other black cards people want to get in here? There's a couple here that I want to save for a discussion later, but I think Loathsome Chimera is better. Yeah. We'll get to that one, El Tangente. The Omen. Sure. We can talk about Omen of the Dead. So here's
pull it up. There it is. Yeah.
it's a Disentomb, and you get to scry 2 later. It's fine. There's a lot of, and I was speaking with Stibbs about this, I think last week. Why is it completely blanking out of my head? If I was going to put in an instant speed, bad reanimator spell, it would be this one. I don't think Omen of the Dead is great. It doesn't do a lot in terms of providing more of a game plan. You need stuff in the grave for it to do anything. That's true. I don't know. There's just a lot of other returns selling to my hand that I would prefer over in Omen of the Dead.
Agreed. Since we moved away from very recently Grey Merchant, we don't have an incentive. Yeah, so we don't have an incentive for putting a permanent on the board that just sits there.
Mm-hmm.
The variants like Wander in Death, is another one, are basically 3 mana for return up to 2 cards. So for the cost to just scry with this, we could have, air quotes, drawn 2 cards of our choice instead.
Yeah, I don't think Omen of the Dead is like the worst version of this. It's definitely better than some of the other instant speed get raised deads. I just think that there are but it combos with Skyfisher. No, you stop that. If we're gonna put in a combo with Skyfisher, it's gonna be something much dumber like Mortuary Mire. But anyway, yeah,
I would have also accepted basic land. Because on turn 3, it gets you an extra land to play.
True. Yeah, Omen of the Dead, fine. Not something I'm looking to get into the cube. Shall we move on to red now? What in red was good in this set? I'm like drifting through. Oh yeah. All right. Let's talk about Iroas's Blessing. And this is... Oh, Decontest wanted to talk about Mogus's favor. Let's finish up black. Mogus's favor. If I remember correctly, this is a +2 -1.
I believe this is the escape.
Mm-hmm.
There.
Okay. I guess this is fine. Like, this does just keep eating X1s if you really want it to, and eventually makes one of your big dum-dums a little bit more attack-oriented. I'm not seeing it. It does so many things, but it does so many things so slightly. That's my issue with it. Like, I can see all the different ways I'd play this. I'm just not sure if all of them add up to enough for me to actually want to have this in a cube. My like very spicy take is that if they tweak this a little so it could be +2 -2, I'd be a lot more on board with it. Because then you'd actually be killing a lot more real cards with it. And also, it still gets worn just as well by the big fatties. Escape 2 is cheap. The 3 mana isn't, is the thing. This is one of the ones where the mana cost goes up a lot. The first time you cast it, it's fine. The second and third time you cast it, it's starting to get pricey. For reference, in order for this to take out a raise the alarm, you have to spend 4 mana and 2 cards from your bin. If no one else has any other thoughts, I'm going to move on to Iroas's Blessing. So Iroas's Blessing is 3 in a red, enchant a creature you control. When it enters the battlefield, deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. And the enchanted creature gets +1/+1. I'm very neutral on this because it's a flame slash with a counter attached to it. It gets attached to a creature. It's also a flame slash I can't cast if I don't have a creature. All right. I figured this one out.
Okay, I can hear you.
All right, there we go. For some reason, my Discord dropped the call, or actually just straight up crashed. So, all right, I'm back. Iroas's Blessing is still on screen. Yeah, I was talking about this. This is a flame slash that I can't cast without a creature, which is where I like flame slash the most, is decks with no creatures until like turn 5. I think this is fine in the limited environment. I'm not stoked about it here.
Agreed. There's going to be enough. There's going to be enough times where you want to cast this, but you're already being run over, or you've had chump block, or worse, you cast this to kill your opponents, who knows what, and they respond with a Doom Blade, or Lightning Bolt, or I want to say Pit Fight, but the instant speed fight in green, and they remove the creature you were going to in order to kill their bigger creature. I want it to be great. I don't think it will be with our setup.
I also do love. I'm just gonna real quick add in something incredibly stupid here. Anyone who has ever had even a passing interest in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, this does look like that one panel out of the end of part 3, and it has been freaking me out for the past week. Yeah, Skyfisher comment. Yep. Just not quite enough. Let's talk about other red cards. Let's talk about something that I think is just, oh man, this is really testing my my typing skills blind. Irreverent Revelers. It's a Manic Vandal that can also just have haste if there's not an artifact. I like this. It's fine. This fits the mold of like a Reclamation Sage. Revelers was really annoying when I played Limited. Yeah, like every so often this is gonna snipe a pesky artifact, and don't like Manic Vandal, don't like a backup option. So I think most of the time this is going to be a 3-mana 2/2 with haste. And when it really matters, you're going to be able to have a way to remove a pesky artifact that's causing you problems. As it stands, not a whole ton of stuff that I'm super worried about, but like, I don't know, this eating like, what do you call it? Renegade
Please
Freighter.
say Witching Well.
Oh,
Disappointing.
I think you're pretty unhappy with a 2-2 haste when it's a 2-2 haste, though. I think you're fine when it's a 2-2 haste. I still think this probably winds up in the sideboard of a decent amount of the time, but I like I'm willing to main deck a Rex Sage in other cubes just because it kind of sucks to pay 3 mana for a 2-1, sorry. But the upside of being able to blow out a permanent that I can't usually interact with necessarily is a really big upside for me. Like, well, not a lot of interaction with enchantments and artifacts in the cube. That's the other thing. Like, how many ways can the average deck interact with, say, a Bone Splitter on turn 2? Like, if you hit that turn 2 Bone Splitter, there's not... Do you want to have sideboard cards? It feels like something that has been avoided before. The thing is, this I don't think is strictly a sideboard card. The fail case of not having something to target with it is not tremendous, but it's not a completely miserable card either.
Yeah, I'll generally agree. We're not. I don't think of it as a sideboard card. I think of it as a modal spell. So I'm paying, I don't know what it is, crush mana or whatever to potentially destroy an artifact, or I'm overpaying for a shock in my opponent's face. It's not the most efficient, but since they went to best of one on Arena, this is the sort of flexible option that we've been seeing play, and this one is just on the of exciting enough for me.
Yeah, like this isn't gonna be a Night of Autumn or anything. Keep the signets in check when you put them back in. Decontest, direct to the ban. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. We're not allowed to talk about those. Stibs is literally here. That said, I don't know. I'm a big fan of modal cards, and here the two modes. One of the modes is definitely a lot worse than the other. The 2/2 haste for 3 is not amazing. I will fully admit that. But being able to get rid of some important card on the board just out of nowhere without having to have this be a sideboard card. So you're like, game 1, oh, cool, my opponent has a Renegade Freighter early, and it is really beating me down. If you have a Reverent Revelers, you have a chance to actually interact with that just in your main board. And worst case scenario, it's a slightly bad 2/2, and sometimes you're going to side it out because you don't see any artifacts game 1. Red 3-drop slot's already full of gas. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Wow, the red 3-drop slot is very, very large. It's larger than I remembered. Boy, howdy.
Yeah, we shifted almost everything out of 4 and 5 down. Good.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that. Yeah, I don't know. We're already playing Goblin Smuggler, which is another 3 mana 2/2 with a slight upside and sometimes haste and haste. I don't know. I don't think this is as far from being playable in the main deck as some folks think. But that's my piece on it. I have heard what you have to say, and we'll take it into consideration when we're making the final decisions later this week. What else do I want to talk about in red? Oh, let's talk about this one. Let's talk about something that got people real upset about my take on it. Satyr's Cunning. I don't think this card is as bad as everyone else thinks it is. Yeah, a lot of people are not fans of this. I understand. My big thing that I noticed was a lot of people... this is just a way to generate extra bodies when you need them. I know that everyone else is not a fan of this. They can't... yeah, It doesn't matter. They're just 1/1 spuds that you can create with your extra mana. Does it enable a sacrifice combo play? You can play it in a red X sacrifice deck and have spuds on demand for 3 mana. I think this is better than a lot of people do. I am not going to put this in the cube because enough people have made it clear that they don't like it. I just wanted to touch on it because I had brought it up earlier. We can move on. And specifically, let's move on to this thing. Underworld Ragehound. This was the first of the escape things that we had previewed for us. Spark Spitter did get cut. So Underworld Ragehound is a 3/1 for 2. Attacks each combat if able, and it escapes for 4 mana as a 4/2. I'm kind of neutral on this. I have play tested it. I wasn't a huge fan of the fact that it has to attack. It feels like a lot more of a downside here. I think it's still reasonable, but there were definitely points where it was like, oh, I can bring this back, but it's just going to attack into something else. It's a 2 mana removal spell. I wish it said it couldn't block. Yes, I think that is a great way to put it. Running monkeys. I have not liked the drawback on this. It feels like most of the time it is a removal spell that it feels like a lot of the time it is an edict for something with 2 power. That's how I feel about this. Because your opponent still gets to make the choice of what blocks it. And it is, again, it's the Escape Exile 3, so it's a little bit more taxing. I don't know.
Faithless Looting now.
You can Faithless Looting, pitch this, pitch another card. You're most of the way to escaping it.
Yeah, it's very good.
Okay, so here's my question. What comes out for this?
I will continue. So I have affection for them because Tempest is one of my all-time favorite sets rather. But Mog Flunkies stress me out every single time I end up with them.
Oh, the fact that they can't attack or block alone?
Yeah. So a 3/1 that I can regrow later with help that is capable of blocking if they happen to attack into me on turn 2, and can attack by itself without having a haste creature in my 3-drop spot, to me feels better. But I play aggro, I think suboptimally. I'm not a Newsmon. That's also the spot that I wanted Rimrock Knight to go in last set, though. So I'm really just looking for a 3-power beater that has an upside, I think. Flunkies feels stressful for me, and we're seeing predictably the responses like Stibbs already misses Flunky even though it remains in the cube.
No.
Elton Hente is saying blasphemy.
So Elton Hente, I do want to address you don't want to block in the deck this fits in, right? Yeah, you don't. The catch being you also don't always want to attack with this thing because sometimes it's just going to trade for a 2/1. I prefer Rimrock Knight. That card is solid. Yeah. I could definitely see a discussion opening about Rimrock Knight again. Mog Flunkies, man, it's still just a 3/3 for 2. Like, even if occasionally you do wind up not having another creature and getting into a little bit of a Mog jam, it should be fine. I don't know what else comes out for this, but maybe Underworld Ragehound might go in on a probationary basis again, just to get some more time with it, get more data on it, because I've tested it and I was unimpressed, but this is also one where I'm very willing to be wrong on it. This is one that feels like I could very easily be wrong, and I just tested it in situations where it didn't work out well. Not every card has to be perfect 100% of the time. Let's
Decontest says Flunkies is so big. That's true. Sorry, I want to touch on this real quick. So part of the problem, if you look at the 3 drops in red, we've got a couple of hasty creatures, and we've got a couple of creatures that are utility creatures that we really don't want to be blocking with. So if somebody is attacking on turn 3 and we're red, we have no block. If we're waiting until turn 4 to get our threats in anyway, why did we play Flunkies? Is basically my.
Yeah. I don't know. And I do see people asking about Rimrock Knight. That is one that has been on my mind since the last update. I'd been unimpressed with it early. A lot of people have been singing its praises. I don't think that it is just better than this. I think they are very different axes of card advantage. One has a spell attached to it that you can cast early. The other one has recursiveness. I think they are different enough that I don't want to say one is just better. But yes, I do just want to get that out there. I would like to find space for Rimrock. I think getting it in there is something that we were incorrect about with the last update, and I'm willing to make amends to that. All right. Anything else in red? Red was pretty light this set. I don't think there was anything else I really wanted to get talking about. I'll give chat a second to catch up if there's anything else that they really wanted to hear our takes on.
War Leader.
War Leader.
Just for a second to talk about archetypes. SKOOS. War Leader.
All right, here we go. Scophos War Leader. So this is okay. This is one of the sack ones. So this lets you pitch a creature and enchantment to it, and it gets +1/+0 and menace until end of turn. Wow. Huh.
We talked about this. You're surprised every time you read the text on this, and I get it.
I'm just used to sack outlets being like 2/2s, and you really having to work to get them big. And this thing is just a big old brick from the start.
And that's completely fair. Downside of War Leader, it's 5-drop. Mentioned earlier, we have basically nothing in the top end of red. Upside, we have 3 different color pairs that, when paired with black in particular, are essentially aristocrats. Red is the only other card that has, the only other color that has a sack outlet repeatable. In Bogarden something.
Bogarden Dragonheart.
Yes. And being able to sacrifice a couple of things is great. Red has a variety of tokens, token makers rather, and honestly, I like it. I like clarifying an archetype and making Rakdos more clearly aristocrats, giving us the ability to do something in Orzhov and Golgari in particular.
I actually hear that, and I kind of like this. Also, like the fact that this just immediately out the gate gets evasion if you sack one thing into it. A 5/5 with menace is already a big pain. Like, not being able to chump block your opponent's 5/5 is a little rough. Boy. Yeah, I guess I hadn't read this quite enough. I kind of dig this, and I do really like the idea of using this as sort of a in so that we can start having black red as the aristocrats pair. I hadn't considered this, but yeah, I like this. Also for consideration, Scorched Rusalka, Stibbs, my friend.
That should be in there.
Have you not looked at the cube lately?
The one I forgot. No, it's because I mentioned Dragonheart and I forgot Rusalka.
Yep.
Is the other sack outlet that we have. I apologize. That is a fair point.
Yeah. Okay.
That one's on.
So yeah. I think yeah. Okay. I'm more on board with Scophos War Leader than I thought I would be. I think having a discussion on that one was important. Okay, I get it. I get this now. All right. Anything else in red, or shall we move on to green cards?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Let's talk Loathsome Chimera. So this is a 3-mana 4/1 that escapes for 5 mana as a 5/2. I'm not big on this one. It blocks well.
Uh,
Weirdly.
I guess it does. It blocks early. Yeah.
Dies to 1/1 tokens. Yeah, that's the big issue. Like, a 4/1 should be like 4 power creature should be aggressive in my mind, just like as a default. But this thing plays defense a lot better than it plays offense. I don't
Yeah.
think there's a place for this right now.
Yeah, I want Moss Viper over this every single time. But
Oh, the Death Toucher. Yeah,
yeah.
all right, B Corny. Thanks for swinging by. Hope you enjoyed the stream so far. Yeah, I'm not in for Loathsome Chimera. I don't like this unless someone can give me a use case for this that is. I don't want green to be getting defensive cards right now. I don't think that's where we want to be. The art for this, by the way, terrifying. Absolute nightmare fuel. I don't know if anyone has ever seen the film The Ritual, but there's a monster in it that reminds me strikingly a lot of this and also is quite terrifying. Yeah, okay. Loathsome Chimera, pass from me. Let's also talk about Nylea's Forerunner.
That Mori.
All right, so this is a 5-mana 5/3 trample. Other creatures you control have trample. That's a line of text I didn't expect to see on a comment anytime soon. Again, I don't like how fragile this body is. I get that like Ferocious was a thing in this set where there were a couple cards in green that care about 4 or more power, but it sounds like a really good card. Not sure how good it is. I think this solves some of the problems that mono green has. Okay, 2 vastly different opinions on this. I guess like where does this fit? Like, I guess you can jam it in your ramp deck if one of your top end things doesn't have trample. But
I'm honestly seeing it in the red green kind of mid range deck.
oh, so you're
We
just
have a
thinking
bunch of 3 and 4 power creatures, and you're against the raise the alarm swarm or something.
I guess my question is like, do you main deck this in that deck though? Or is this something that lives in the board until you need to bring it in to get through the token army?
I guess it depends on what my other 5 drops are. So if I am playing against pacifism full white X deck, they can't stop this creature. Throwing a pacifism on the Forerunner makes all of my other creatures better, I think. Yeah, I don't.
I'm not sold on this. It would suck if you're dependent on it. I think it would suck if you were dependent on it, but I don't. I don't know how many decks are super dependent on this. It just feels sideboardy to me enough, and 5/3 is an awkward body. I'm not a fan of these, like, this could conceivably die to a couple of tokens in the wrong situation type of bodies.
For me.
All right, let's like the effect. Yeah, okay. So let's scoot on. We're just going to talk about something that is very much near and dear to me. Let's talk about Omen of the Hunt. This is a 5-color nonsense card. I got nothing else for you. This is a flash rampant growth that scries 2. This is a 5-color nonsense card. I'm probably not going to put it in because I don't know. I got too excited looking at this card, so I know it's not what the cube is supposed to do. Yeah. Hunt is worse than Sun in my opinion. If you are trying to truly go into like a color intensive nonsense deck, I think Hunt is solid. That said, I want to play my green blue ramp decks, but I don't think it's right for the cube. It's the most UG card since Caps. Jesus. Yeah. Just wanted to bring this one up real quick. It's not going in. Wouldn't rampant growth be
Coward?
Oh, Stibs with the push to talk slams. I'm gonna move on from this just because I don't think that this is the effect that we're looking to add right now. So it is something I will be picking up a personal copy of in foil. Also, that art probably looks gorgeous with some shininess. Let's talk about divination. Let's talk about divination in green. Here you go. Relentless Pursuit. 2 in a green. Reveal top 4. You can put a creature and or a land card from among them into your hand. Rest go to the graveyard. I like this. After we get through the cards today, we're going to be having a discussion about self-mill as an option for a thing that could be done in the cube. I like Relentless Pursuit. I haven't done the hypergeometric calculations on how frequently this is just a green divination, but gut feeling is enough of the time that it probably is pretty decent. Mill your mother bear. Yeah, like you can get cute with it and mill things that it could get. Because remember, it's always optional. If you see creatures and lands, you can just use this as 3 mana, dump 4 cards into your bin. That is a thing you can do. Yeah, I like this. We not too long ago added, let me just pull it up as the secondary thing here. We not too long ago added in this thing, Winding Way. This is another one. It's a different riff on this effect that they've been trying with green. Reveal X cards from the top of your library. Get some of them that match a characteristic. I think Relentless Pursuit is a fine addition to this. I don't know what's gonna get cut. I'd like to see these grave synergies being teased. Yeah. My hope is sometimes this is closer to Read the Bones versus Divination. Yeah, I mean, let's pull that one up. Read the Bones. Yeah, so this is...
It's fair. Just...
Yeah. So yeah, I can see that as a comparison. Like, there is more going on than just 3 mana draw 2. But yeah, I like Relentless Pursuit. I don't know what would come out for it. It might be a tweaking around green's card advantage stuff, but let's continue on into green. Oh yeah. Let's So the last time we were here, last time on Pauper Cube stream, we talked about and I'm gonna pull this up. What is it called? The Baloth. It's not Ravenous. Baloth Gorger. We talked about this card. And in fact, we talked about how people didn't care for it. And this set so graciously brought us Voracious Typhon, which is it requires 4 other cards in the bin, but this is quite possibly the answer to how do we make Baloth Gorger good, and it's just making both halves of it playable. Because Baloth Gorger has the awkward thing, like if you draw it on like 6 mana and you don't have 2 more lands in your hand, it's like, cool, I get to play a 4 mana 4/4, or maybe I wait around and I get a 8 mana 7/7. Yeah, it has the kicker trap. Like, you will find yourself in awkward situations where you're not sure what play to make, and sometimes one isn't necessarily correct. Yeah. You with Voracious Typhon, you just go, cool, 4 mana 4/4. Later in the game, cool, 7 mana 7/7. I've never liked Kicker. Kicker is good, but sometimes difficult. I think with cards like Baloth Gorger, where there is enough of a distance in between the regular cost and the kicker cost, they're easily traps for gameplay. But I think Voracious Typhon kind of mitigates that, because the play pattern is just play this as a 4/4, then escape it later. Kicker is skill testing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stibs.
Kicker absolutely is skill testing. The perk to me is yeah, it simplifies things so your new players don't overthink, they don't fall into the Marrow Randy Bueller trap.
Yes, the famous Kavu Titan trap. Yeah, I just think Vicious Typhon is a reasonable top of curve big old chungus for green. I think this one's an easy slot in. We almost made it through a live Q&A without a Mark Roseroser. Additive distraction is important, Stibs. The Baloth Gorger is a great example of additive distraction, and also kind of not being super great at the end of the day.
I will note, based on the art, I'm mad that this doesn't have like menace or reach or something. Like, it feels like it should have an additional keyword.
No,
even though I know why it doesn't.
Need to throw in Dreadmaw to complete the stream. We're going to be talking about another Trampler later that we didn't talk about last time around, but no spoilers on that. All right. That actually brings us to the end of the set, unless there's any other green things we really want to talk about.
I think I had it. Blessing. I don't like it enough unless we're desperate to do something with auras, and I don't think we are.
Did we do Loathsome? We did. I wasn't a fan. Warbriar. Okay. Stibs, for you, I will talk Warbriar. Briar Bless. 1 in a green.
It's quite good.
Enchant a creature you control. It fights up to 1 target creature you don't control on ETB, and it gets +0/+2. I think it's reasonable. I'm not sold on this versus the fight spells that actually pump your dude. Get that this sticks around, but without the other aura interactions. I guess like bouncing this back to your hand. Again, since this is the stream where we're just going to do nothing but this, and it synergizes with Core Skyfisher. But I'm not super stoked on this just as kind of another fight spell. I'm still... What is it? I always get the two mixed up. The two...
Savage Punch?
The two punching stuff in the face cards.
Epic Confrontation and Savage Punch are the two options.
Yeah, I always get the
Epic
two of them
always gives
confused.
+1/+2, and Savage sometimes +2.
Yeah. So Epic Confrontation also buffs the power, but it doesn't get to keep the toughness boost. I'm not convinced that Briar's oh god, this one's just not playing well with my mouth. Warbriar Blessing is enough of an improvement. What happened to the red enchantment loot guy? He's not as good as Merchant of the Veil. That's the main problem with it. Yeah, it's just not as good as other things. Yeah, I'm not on board with Warbriar Blessing, even though it's pretty close. If this was an Epic Confrontation as an aura, I would be all about it. And in no small part due to the fact that it does just make it in some ways strictly better. I shouldn't say that. In some ways it makes it better. I'm not saying the strictly better word. It's not far off. Yeah.
I will note that I played this with the Envoy a couple of times at the pre-release. It was, the toughness is non-negligible.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have I've forgotten the word. We don't have, not Constellation, the other one where we care about pips.
Oh, Devotion?
My brain is bad. Devotion, yes. We don't have Devotion. It's not amazing. Yeah, Stibbs is correct. You do get to play with fight more aggressively. Thank you, Running Monkeys, for also trying to help me out remember words with my brain good. The toughness mattered. I would prefer it if it had flash. I like Blessing a little bit more than Savage Punch because I am more likely to play it early. Epic Confrontation always gives a buff. I would not change that out. But I don't know. It feels like making a change just for the sake of making a change right now. I would want to test it more when I don't have Envoy.
I do also see El Tangente pointing out that asking how likely we think Heliod's Pilgrim is to make it in, and I see what you're getting at there. If this is one of the tutorable things, it makes it a little bit better. And I don't know. To not spend forever on it, I hear what people are saying, and I will put aside personal opinions on this and try to look at Warbriar Blessing a little bit more openly when we're kind of coming down the pipe for final decisions. I hear what you say. I think y'all have brought me up on it. I'm not still 100% on board, but I get it. If art is a tiebreaker, it's an easy epic. Yeah, but that art is really, really, really hard to beat. That's a good one. Whereas Warbriar Blessing is, oh, what is that card from Mirage? It's like,
see, for me, it reminds me of Carapace from Homeland.
It's not Bramble, so it must be Briar or something.
There's a Briar Shield, maybe? That's not.
Well, there's Briar Shield. This isn't it. There's one from. No, it's not Vines of Vastwood. It's some. What would it be? It would be Visions. So E. Sorry for this sidetrack, folks, but it's not Visions. Is it Mirage? Here it is. Armor of Thorns. I don't know why, but this reminded me of it. Reminds me of Moldervine Cloak. Is there going to be a post-discussion on cards outside of Theros? There will be. So I guess that really kind of wraps us up here. Warbriar Blessing is a maybe. I'm going to return to the single card view here. So, a few things that we want to talk about here. One of the things I mentioned earlier that I think Rimrock Knight is going to find some space in the cube for it. One of the other things I wanted to talk about was one that someone had brought up in passing, but we never really got a chance to devote a bunch of time to. How do y'all feel about this? Oh, it's the wrong one. Oh, heck. There we
The
go.
other wolf.
The Witch Stalker. So this is...
We have 3 rares in the cube. Simple. Jesus, my words.
Do we really have 3 things that were rares at one point? Wow. So
they're all green.
yeah, green gets their rares downshifted in master sets. Okay, so Fierce Witch Stalker is a 4-mana 4/4 trample with upside when it ETBs. How do people feel about this card? I think we missed it. I think it's a reasonable thing to be doing with your turn 4 in green.
I will note that this is one that I was in favor of last time. I was outvoted.
Yeah.
I was looking at it for, I think, Imperious or maybe.
Yeah.
Which might have been the issue. I might have been too aggressive and specific.
I think for me, like, I've had time to think about this. It came up, someone brought it up in the chat, like, shortly after the Eldraine update went out, and I've been thinking about it since then. I actually really enjoy this card. It's simple, it's clean. Stibbs, thumbs down. What's wrong with this one, buddy?
I was going to type some stuff out. So we have a whole glut now of 4/4s for 4, right? Like Bala Thorger and the Typhon and now Fierce Witchstalker. I think 4/4s that lean into flexibility, so ramp decks and slower decks have more options and opportunity for payoff, is more valuable in the cube than a strict 4/4 that comes with a little bump for a food token. The trample is noteworthy, but I've generally found flexibility matters a little bit more to help ensure that all the archetypes get pieces they need than strictly, in the average case, you're going to play for 4 and you can attack over tokens now.
So my thing would be, I don't think Imperiosaur is better than this. I think that there is something in the 4-drop slot right now that is not exciting and was once a lot better than it is. And I think that's the main thing. I think it's less so that I want like this huge big pile of 4/4s and more that I think there's a 4-drop that is doing less to impact the board than this would be. That's my basic shtick on this. But yeah,
not to pile on, my thought last time was in part because we brought back Manatorks. Imperiosaur gets harder to play aggressively with. I wouldn't inherently be upset with Typhon or any of the other fair and reasonable 4-drop options that we might have instead of Witchstalker. But last set, I really liked Witchstalker.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks good enough and enough. I saw enough talk about it that I would like to at least try this. All right. Known to be against uncards. Someone remind me to bring up Target Minotaur later. Is Target Minotaur the 2/1 prowess? Because it's... Oh, you're talking about the Fierce Witchstalker. I was very confused for a second there. I was like, okay, I don't think a prowess creature is quite hooting mandrills, but yeah, let's move on from the Witchstalker. I've said my piece on it. Target Minotaur, Well, we're talking about the non Theros stuff. So Target Minotaur is something that we do kind of support blue red spells. The only thing I could think of that I'm not super stoked about in the 2-drop slot right now, or the low drops in red particularly, is Nest Robber.
Which serves a function in that it has haste.
It has haste, but it's also not dreadfully exciting, is the big thing.
So this is where the flunkies and everyone's favorite Raging Crunch stress me out. If we don't have the non-exciting low mana haste guys, we end up having a turn where we can't do anything after we cast those.
Decontest bringing up the Goblin Motivator. So yeah, let me pull that one up as well. We're now getting into the real weeds of like maintaining a community cube is a long endeavor. So Goblin Motivator got brought up, I want to say a few weeks ago, maybe even a month ago. I have been personally a pretty big fan of these in a like red green. I have seen it referred to as like caveman aggro, where you just kind of take a little bit of ramp and then pile on as many 4-drops as you can that do things. And then you brought it up originally. Okay, cool. Like the nice thing about Goblin Motivator is if you land it early, it just kind of forces your opponent to play around. My opponent could tap out for some big dumb idiot Unga Bunga haste smash. Yeah, the caveman aggro does its thing by just presenting big dumb idiots who will eventually murder you. I would be very much in favor of testing out a Goblin Motivator. There's another one as well, Bloodlust Inciter. It's the exact same thing except it's a human. And the thing about these is they just it sits on the board. If your opponent uses a real removal spell on it, you've won. If they don't, you've won that exchange. If they don't, every creature you cast for the rest of the game can have haste. And like looking at like some of the more Unga Bunga options in green, like, oh cool, like turn 5 cast a Nessian Asp. Here's a hasty 4/5. And any of the big dumb idiots, you can just kind of dump them onto the board. I think with buff green stuff, yeah. Also, like if we're going to be having something like Scophos War Leader, that is a big end of the game option for black red sacrifice. This one would also let us get in a way to sort of make that matter more. Imagine if Core Sky for days. Thank you, Decontest. Yeah. I like Goblin Motivator effects. I've been a big fan of them in Limited where they've shown up. I would be very interested in getting one in there to get some more widespread testing of it in. All right. Just a sidetrack from individual cards. One of the things that I spoke to Fizzle about before we went live here is something that has come up a few times I've noticed over the past few months. We used to have green, black, blue kind of had a sub-theme of self-mill graveyard shenanigans. And one of the things we brought up the last time around was that we felt some of the color pairs were a little bit ill-defined or a little bit nebulous, and they had gold cards that kind of didn't fully fit, like Undercity Uprising. One of the things that I would like to talk about with the folks who are here right now is, how do y'all feel about bringing back possibly having black-green's color identity within the cube be a self-mill recursion kind of affair? One of the big things we brought up at the time was that the Golgari Gold cards sometimes felt a little bit mismatched to not defining what exactly the archetype wanted to do. And I think that this is something that, especially with the fact that we just got another set with graveyard mechanics in it, there's also already undergrowth cards. How do folks feel about bringing back some self mill? Spoiler alert: I'm very in favor of it.
Cube is kind of missing graveyard stuff in mass. Would like to see it. Says Simples MW. Double Fried says Golgari graveyard stuff is sweet. And Stibbs has developed a meme, which is accurate. You did make mistakes.
How deep are you thinking? Tordex deep. Tordex is a very specific card that I'm not sure if we can support yet. I'm also loathed to try and make it work because Tordex winds up being a very parasitic card that creates weird variances in the efficiency of cards. I'm not saying Tordex never goes in the cube. I'm just saying first pass would probably be, we have a few ways to put cards in your graveyard and some interesting raised dead effects. It's enchantment so you can discard it to thirst. All right, fair enough. I love me.
That is the most.
What is
tortured
Tordex?
Existence, Stibbs.
Yeah. I believe this actually even used to be in the cube back in the day. So Tortured Existence is this funky graveyard engine. I also brought up Grim Harvest earlier, which is another one of my pet like graveyard engine cards at common that I am never including in the cube because it is a unpleasant play experience for newer players. And I firmly believe that it is a nightmare that I should not subject others to. But that said, something like Tortured Existence does give you a nice build around. It has been a pauper constructed deck for quite a while, as Running Monkeys points out. If we include something like this, we're not going to be, I doubt, if we get to the point where Tortured Existence is in, I don't think we're going that extra distance and doing stuff like Grave Scrabbler, for example. I don't think we're getting to that point of like parasitism where we're going like, oh, well, black cards get to have madness sometimes, as a treat because we have Tortured Existence in there. So yeah, I don't know exactly what form this would take. Could we have the lizard back? Rootwalla.
Oh.
I'll tell you what, if they ever give us a Rootwalla equivalent of Narcomoeba, I'd be much happier with something like that. But card Rootwalla lizard. Yeah. I don't know exactly what form a sort of self-mill thing would take. The big gets would obviously be stuff like having things like this in our gold section, Gristly Salvage, and sort of aggressively leaning into these, look at the top X, a bunch of them go to the bin. It would probably be a green-black thing, and then maybe some bleed over into blue in the form of impulse effects that go to the bin. I haven't really had a lot of time to put thought into it. I just wanted to see where folks were sitting with a sort of Golgari return to form with graveyard self-mill kind of shenanigans. And it seems like people are generally positive about it. So if anyone else has any opinions, please.
It's better.
Theros looks better if we return to form. It does. And that was one of the things I had mentioned, I kind of passingly mentioned when someone was like, oh, it fuels escape. And I'm like, yeah, it also just fuels graveyard nonsense. It's maybe less of a trap than before, but it's still really tough to pull off. I think I think one of the things is avoiding like the turbo dredge stuff. I think I just want it to be like, oh, I'm playing a handful of Gravedigger effects. Lack of cross color pair synergies is rough. So I think one of the things is prior to this, it was in like the Sultai colors, and I think having green and black get this card selection where you look at the top X and some of them go to the bin is an easy way to support this, and then giving black and green some recursive elements. So having stuff like and this is one that I have played in personal cubes, opting for something something like Ransack the Lab, where you're both getting stuff to the hand and milling stuff. Yeah, stuff like Seder Wayfinder, things where we're just kind of incidentally having the card selection and draw in black and green overlap with the self-mill effects. And I think Wizards has kind of already been doing that anyway in a lot of their sets, as far back as options like Commune with the Gods.
Mulch, you might. Oh yeah.
I mean, if you want to go really far back, there's Mulch, which I think was originally in like Weatherlight. Would you be willing to try Exhume out under this plan? That's a tough one. Benediction of Ronus, is that the enchantment and
it's creature and or enchantment, I believe.
Gotcha.
5 cards.
Yeah. Exhume's a tough one. Benefaction of Ronus. There you go. Very close. Yeah, so Exhume leads to play patterns that are sometimes not super fun. I am not completely opposed to it, but the catch being you're rarely going to actually make Reanimator happen, and I think that for that... Exhume is worrisome since we have Looting and Crusher. The catch is you still need to have those in hand. Remember, this is a singleton. You're not building a constructed deck where you get 4 Looting, 4 Exhume, 4 Crusher, 4 Dragon's Breath. Like, I think for me, the bigger issue is that having Exhume in a pack with a newer player can cause them to think that Reanimator is something we support when the next Reanimator spells are actually in white and they're at 4 mana. Which is just a little bit rough, and I don't want to signpost a archetype that isn't really there, is the big thing for me. I'm not worried about Exhume on a power level, honestly, although it will create some like turn 2 wins. I'm more concerned that it falsely signals something that isn't in the cube. But I think this is a gradual thing where when we're making this update, I'm going to look into some of these self-mill draw cards in green and black, and we're going to start peppering some of those in. We've already got some recursion in the cube, and sort of figuring out a way to kind of gradually ease into this with the caveat of, hey, if this doesn't work out, please tell us and we'll revert it. You're all forgetting the value exhume? The value exhume where you exhume your own Muldrifter that you evoked earlier. Also is... I'm trying to remember... Is the big beefy boy? Oh yeah, Striped Riverwinder's in the cube, and that is certainly a limited experience. Exhume Core Skyfisher. Boy howdy. Just going to go and quickly change the Pauper Cube channel to be Core Skyfisher Incorporated in the Discord, just so we can be clear on where we stand on that.
If you want to go back and do Exhume of Skyfisher, we gotta bring Driver of the Dead back. That is just infinite Core Skyfishers for 4 mana.
Oh boy, this is not good. We've gotten off the rails. I guess, is there anything else anyone would like to bring up for this Q&A? I think we've kind of spanned a little bit past the set and talked about some bigger plans in general. Is there anything folks would like to talk about that we haven't brought up, haven't touched on, be it a single card, ideas you have for the cube, personal questions, I guess? The cycling lands. I like them.
I like 1/3 of them.
So you're referring to specifically the graveyard hate relic,
Onslaught
perhaps?
rather than.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. What's the question? Decontest has asked Graveyard Hate Relic, perhaps. I follow now.
All right. Let's just go through one by one. The cycling lands. I think that it's pretty reasonable to swap one cycle, probably the whichever one you like the least of the lands, for 2 cycles of cycling lands. I don't think we're headed that way in the main like version of the cube, the master branch, if you will. But I think it's a reasonable swap to make for your personal cube. Graveyard hate, I don't want to introduce an entire archetype around milling yourself and then going, all right, now here's a bunch of ways to hate it out in colorless. I think as part of a rollout of a self-mill strategy and package in there, I think if it turns out that things are a little bit too effective, either scaling back some of the enablers or potentially looking at graveyard hate would be a thing that we would do. What else? Funeral rites if we are supporting graveyard. Oh god, this is one of those. Is this what I think it is? Oh, this is what I think it is. Oh, no. Oh, this is the one that just came out.
Oh.
I was thinking of that weird one where you look and like you pitch a bunch of cards into it and you get to thought seize them for that many cards out of their hand.
Oh, like it's like Rite of Devastation or something from Torment?
Yeah, it's one of the Torment ones. Yeah, something like funeral rites could be a consideration. There's also we were talking about this prior to launching the stream. There's also Bitter Revelation, when you look at the top 4, 2 of them to hand, rest to the graveyard. Yeah, there are options for us to support this type of thing. How about replacing Minotaur Skullcleaver with Cicada Lancer? I need to remind myself about this. I remember keeping Cicada Lancer back in the day, and yeah, this is... I would prefer to have something a little bit more impactful at the 3 slot. I am not a huge fan of Minotaur Skullcleaver, though. I would rather have something more impactful than this and Minotaur Skullcleaver in that spot. I don't think either of them are super relevant. I also, on a personal note, would prefer to avoid weird keywords if we can. Flanking's definitely a less than obvious interaction with double blocks, for example. And since this is a community cube, it does have to sort of account for different play groups and levels of experience. Just
seeing Lancer, in particular when you have 1/1s, or worse when you are planning on blocking with your Raise the Alarm tokens that you haven't cast yet.
Yeah.
It's a great way to make people feel bad if they weren't around when Flame was a thing.
We should add self-mill and flicker nonsense. Also, flanging is too complicated. I don't think flanging is too complicated. I think that in a cube with a lot of X1 tokens, it kind of punishes those decks in a very specific way. I don't know. This just isn't
It
my
also
cup of
makes
tea.
white and red's 3/1s horrible.
Yeah.
Stib says it's a feature, not a bug to punish X1s. This is true, but it is a bug to obviate the kind of aggressive creatures that the aggressive colors get with haste.
El Tangente also brings up sacrifice decks have a hard time because the removal in cube is so good. So another thought is perhaps cutting some of the removal. I would posit I like where you are coming from. I want to preface this with that. One of the things I have thought about I've considered doing is taking a look at the removal and moving it towards a place where it is more sorcery speed. I think one of the main things that can blow out an aristocrat strategy is being able to remove things in the middle of, I don't know, someone sacking into a creature that gets pumped when it eats things. I think one of the things that warps the removal in this cube specifically is the fact that a lot of it is instant speed. And while that is really nice for interacting with stuff, it does also make it so that sometimes playing your cool deck isn't actually good, and you should just commit to something that's a little bit less interesting in the long run. So I do kind of want to take a look at the overall state of removal, like where it is in terms of instant sorcery speed and how much of the cube each of these spells hit, because some of these spells kill most of the cube's creatures, and maybe peeling that back a little bit would be good. Any conspiracy cards y'all are interested in? No. Conspiracies are not good for cubes in terms of health. They are a free effect that can't be interacted with. How about Regicide and Terror? I have feelings about Regicide, but sounds like a glowing recommendation for Myers Grasp. Yeah. Something like Myers Grasp is nice because it lets a deck interact with its opponent's creatures, but it doesn't let you do the thing where you just hold up mana on your opponent's turn and just invalidate whatever they play turn three or so. Yeah, I've been a big proponent of, if you want creature decks to be better, taking your removal to sorcery speed helps a decent amount with that, personally. Regicide I have my own particular quirks with, just in terms of it being a draft matters card that is either some of the best removal or literally does nothing. If players are forgetting stuff, you can write a post-it note. I would recommend keeping some scrap paper around if that's really becoming a problem, but I think that's less of why I have an issue with it. Yeah. All right. Anything else from folks at home?
I have a last, open comment for people to think about and bring back to the Discord when I'm not as hungry and tired. We've discussed today kind of clarifying or cleaning up a Golgari theme and making it more clear that graveyard matters as opposed to black-green good stuff with sometimes aristocrats, because every aristocrats if it has black. Talked a little bit via exactly one card clarifying Rakdos aristocrats to distinguish that archetype from some of the other, again, black combinations. Right now, the signpost cards, Orzhov, white-black, remain kind of, we have good removal, and maybe you'll sacrifice your stuff to do it. There's not a clear a clear thematic descriptor that I could explain the cube to somebody with. If you have any additional thoughts about that, I would love to hear them. I'm still trying to figure out how to make it so not every so I don't just say every combination with black. Sacrifice your creature tokens for advantage.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one to take a look into, because Orzhov has kind of been another one of those color pairs that's a little murky at this point as to what exactly it's trying to get at. Orzhov, your win condition is Pillory of the Sleepless, if you're doing right. Did we add Ghostly Flicker? No, we didn't. We did not add Ghostly Flicker. We added Displace.
No, we've got Displace.
Slightly less nonsense. Also, technically, it doesn't require you to flicker one of your lands if you don't have a second target, I guess.
Yeah, it's a weird benefit. Carnage says, any other Draft Matters cards that... it's been a couple of years since the last set. There hasn't been anything that make want to add the old Draft Matters stuff back in.
Yeah. I think the only one that's still in there is Cogwork Librarian, and I think that one just is a smooth enough effect that's easy enough for a player to understand, and doesn't add unnecessary complexity or punish people for not understanding that it's kind of a free benefit in the form of the conspiracies. So yeah, there's not much in terms of the Draft Matters stuff that we've been looking at. But yeah. Anything else from folks at home, or shall we start wrapping this up? All right. Yeah. Mutagenic growth. I don't know off the top of my head. It's not something I've really been looking into, but the card is good. All right, I think we're gonna call it there for today. Yeah, mutagenic growth is the free +2/+2 that Phyrexians. Yeah, I don't think we're looking into any of those at the current moment. The Phyrexian spells, they are definitely, all of them are just good in the generic sense, but I don't think we're specifically looking into any of them at the current moment. All right. So yeah, I think we're gonna call it there for today. Thanks everyone for coming out. This was a super fun time, and we look forward to discussing this more in the Discord. I'll probably toss up some stuff from the discussions that happened so that we can get some discussions going in there as well, and see how people are feeling about the stuff that we discussed here today. Great hanging out with y'all.